It's the International Soccer Preview. We are Soccerphiles Canada. Welcome to Series 30, looking at the groups and teams of the 2025 CONCACAF Gold Cup. This episode is looking at Group A: Mexico, Costa Rica, Suriname, and Dominican Republic. Here we go! And that's it for our look at the four teams. Let's move on to should be part two, our comparison of the teams. And we begin with their pots and rankings.
Yeah, so Mexico were the pot one team. They come in as a top ranked team in the region. We mentioned that they hold both the Gold Cup and Nation League crowns at this point, so no surprise there. Costa Rica was a pot two team, and they were the highest ranked of the pot two teams. That puts them fifth overall in CONCACAF, which is, we said, kind of where they end up at this point. For the pot three team, Suriname was the weakest of the pot three teams, behind Guatemala, Trinidad, and El Salvador. And Dominican Republic actually come in as the lowest ranked team in the tournament, but no surprise, as this is their very first event.
Right, so I think these are based on CONCACAF rankings rather than FIFA rankings. And, my analysis of that would then be a big divide between the top two teams who are at the top of their group and the bottom two teams who are at or near, or as you said, right at the bottom of their group. Right?
Yes, yeah. Mexico and Costa Rica from the top of their pot, Suriname and Dominican Republic from the bottom.
Right, pot is the word I should have used there. So we will see Mexico. Suriname ranked 12th in the CONCACAF region right now. Dominican Republic 19th. So by that reckoning, they were kind of lucky to get into the tournament if we think the top 16 should make it. Let's look at the FIFA and the ELO rankings.
Sure. So starting with Mexico, they are 17th in FIFA and 23rd in ELO. Costa Rica are 54th in FIFA and 51st in the ELO ranking. So again, a lot of consistency there. Suriname are 137th in FIFA, but quite a bit higher in ELO, 103rd. We've mentioned their kind of good form recently. And then Dominican Republic are 139th in FIFA and 138th in ELO. So I guess what we should say is that the FIFA rankings have both Suriname and Dominican Republic separated by just two rankings or two spots. But in ELO, the divide is greater. It's 35 places. So we can talk about that.
Yes, we can, whether we see them as close as that or a pretty big divide as ELO sees it. Before we do get into that discussion, let's look at the head-to-head records, beginning with Mexico and Costa Rica.
Yes, so they've met a number of times, as you'd expect. Mexico has a better record with 17 wins, 8 draws, and 4 wins for Costa Rica.
Yeah, and in recent times, it's been a long time, really, since Costa Rica won a game. It was 2014 World Cup qualifying, that great campaign by Costa Rica, but that was the last time they beat Mexico. They tied them, as we saw in 2022 World Cup qualifying, but Mexico far superior according to the head-to-heads. Okay, let's move on to the next one.
Yeah, Mexico, Suriname, they've met 3 times. It's 3 wins for Mexico.
That's right. So one of those meetings was a long time ago, probably doesn't matter. But the other 2 were recently in 2023 Gold Cup qualifying, or actually Nations League. And we saw Mexico won both of those legs recently. On we go.
Yeah, and Mexico versus Dominican Republic, they have no competitive record. So I guess the optimistic view is Dominican Republic have never lost a competitive game to Mexico.
Nicely put. Yeah, we sometimes actually get complaints about this, like, oh, they met in 1954, and but we're only looking. We don't consider friendlies in this one. We only look at kind of the competitive games that we cover in qualifying and tournaments. So they've never met as far as that goes. On we go.
Costa Rica versus Suriname. Costa Rica has won 5. They've tied once. And Suriname has no wins against Costa Rica.
Right, but that tie was their most recent meeting. It was in the 2024-25 Nations League campaign. They tied in Suriname there, so maybe that gives them a bit of hope going into the Cup. And finally, no, not finally, second last.
Costa Rica and Dominican Republic, they've also never met in the competitive fixtures that we were talking about.
Right, and now finally.
Dominican Republic and Suriname, they have just one meeting. That was a, I'll let you talk about it, but it was a win and a draw for Dominican Republic.
Right, and that was in 2014 World Cup qualifying. So Dominican Republic having, looking favorable to challenge Suriname by that reckoning. Well, at this point, we usually look at the odds. I've been looking for the odds to win group, and you would think there'd be lots of opportunity to gamble on this, Connor. We're not gamblers, but I do like looking at the odds. But it's blank.
Yeah, nothing yet. Maybe closer to the tournament, we'll see that. So you have to go off our own knowledge.
Well, maybe it's not a bad place to begin because we will be looking at the teams comparatively. I don't know whether I'll challenge you to actually put numbers on here, but maybe you can start the discussion into the relative strength of these teams.
Yeah, well, I think, and no surprise, Mexico is the number one team in CONCACAF right now. They've got a couple trophies in their trophy case from recent tournaments, so I think their odds of winning the group are very high. In past years, we might have said Costa Rica could challenge them, and they might still at the game level. But overall, I think Mexico's odds to win the group would have to be quite high. Would you agree?
Yeah, I mean, Costa Rica may be a bit of an unknown with the new players that are coming on board. We saw that they tied Brazil in the opener of the Copa America. But yeah, I think you'd be a brave man to actually predict Costa Rica to take something off of Mexico here.
Yeah, the draw against Brazil certainly, and that was fairly recently, certainly shows that they're capable against good teams. So it's no disrespect to them. You just think overall Mexico have the pedigree in this tournament.
Yeah, I think so. Mind you, I gotta say that when looking at the Players podcast, I don't really feel Mexico is as strong as they used to be. Maybe particularly in terms of bench strength, because in the past they were able to field an A and a B team, and every summer some summers they sometimes had 2 teams on the go. I don't really feel they have that kind of depth anymore. Do you have any thoughts about kind of the squad?
You would probably have better insight into the squad. I mean, I think they still have great players to call on. I mean, we talked about Raul Jimenez kind of coming in for the Nations League games and being the difference maker in both the semifinals and finals. So they still have good players, and whether they all are at this tournament or not remains to be seen, but they can field a very strong 11 for sure, and probably have a depth to not be they're not dependent, I would say, on one player, even though Jimenez has been a difference maker recently.
Yeah, definitely. Do you see any chance for Suriname or Dominican Republic challenging these top 2? We talked about a bit of a gulf between the top and bottom 2.
I think that's where the gulf is. I mean, Costa Rica, we talked about being a little bit of an unknown, and I still view that. They on a good, with a good performance, they may take some points off Mexico, but if they go the other way and are bad, I think it's possible that they slip up. I mean, they did tie Suriname in their most recent meeting. So, yeah, maybe not. It's not an impossible gulf, but I think it would be unlikely that Suriname or Dominican Republic overtake Costa Rica for second.
Right. Of course, there is a chance of one of them finishing in. Hang on, is that right, or is it the top 4 team, just the top 2 making it?
Just the top two.
You're right, because it's 16 teams. So yes, they definitely have to upset to advance there. Let's talk a bit about between Suriname and Dominican Republic. We saw a couple of indications that it might be close, but also a couple of indications that Suriname is the stronger team. What do you think?
I do think Suriname are the stronger team, and I think the main thing for me is they've done it for a bit longer. They qualified for the Gold Cup in 2021. They've been a Nations League A team for several years. Dominican Republic are just kind of coming into that. They have kind of a good Nations League campaign that qualified for them this tournament, but it's a kind of a smaller sample size to go off. And I think Dominican Republic, this is their first ever tournament. You think part of them, they have to just be happy to be here, whereas Suriname have gone through the experience now of being here recently, and I think would like to have ambitions to make a little bit more of a mark.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of Caribbean teams have been kind of scraping the files of their kind of colonizing countries. In this case, Suriname, kind of looking to Netherlands and really finding better and better players over the last few years, as a few of them have, Curacao and so on. And I agree with you that Suriname have been getting better and for longer than Dominican Republic. I think Dominican Republic has some association with Spain, but they're not getting kind of Spanish players who didn't make the Spanish team coming onto their squad like we do see for some other Caribbean teams.
Yeah, they are. We looked at population right at the start. With 11.5 million people, they're bigger than a lot of Caribbean teams they're facing. Do you think that Dominican Republic could be a team that comes into a bit of a force in the region, perhaps like Suriname are doing now?
I wonder if there's a bit of a shift, because we've seen Puerto Rico getting stronger and Dominican Republic, and both of those are kind of countries that are focused on baseball, but both of them I think have been getting better in soccer too, and really both of those teams should be a little bit better than they are. So I think Dominican Republic is generally getting a bit stronger in the region. They're ranked 19th, I think we saw in the CONCACAF rankings. They were ranked a bit higher in ELO. I'm just looking at at their regional ranking in ELO. It's 15th in FIFA and 17th in CONCACAF, so they kind of deserve to be here on that basis. However, that compared to Suriname being 11th in FIFA and 14th in ELO, I think they have an uphill battle. I think they've done well to make it, but I'd be surprised if Dominican Republic overcame Suriname here.
Yeah. Do you think they go home without a point, or do you think they manage to take a point from somewhere?
I think it's very possible they could go home without a point, but you really never know what can happen in these tournaments. I mean, maybe that it doesn't quite lead us into our next consideration, but there is talk of whether Mexico and maybe Costa Rica to a degree, but especially Mexico, will send their best players. So, but even again with a weakened squad, I don't think Dominican Republic. It would be a surprise if they got a point, especially off the big teams.
Yeah.
That is a question, though. Do you think Mexico will be sending their best?
The calendar is so packed, and even there's some Mexican teams competing in the Club World Cup, a number of them, and they just don't really get a summer off. So it's tough to say. They've maybe want to build on success on the Gold Cup and Nations League. It's just really their last major tournament, though, before co-hosting a World Cup. So I think the motivation would be there. It's just whether they choose to kind of rest some players or whether they choose to kind of go full force.
Okay, let's say Mexico does send a B team. Do you see Costa Rica challenging them in that case?
I think they could, but I still probably wouldn't predict it. I think Mexico should have enough, and they usually do well in the group stage. It's maybe later on where they may run into trouble. So yeah, I mean they met last time in the quarterfinals. Mexico won 2-0. I'd probably expect a similar type of result here, even with the B team.
Yeah, I was going to say so. Even with the B team, we don't really know what Costa Rica is going to put out. Finally, how far do you see these teams going? Mexico winning again?
Yeah, I mean, I think they've looked stronger than the United States recently. They've been challenged by Panama quite a bit, so they're not a clear step ahead of everyone. And Canada hopefully can have a good showing too. So. I mean, they'll want to win it. They've won the last 2 editions, I believe. So kind of anything less than that, I guess, is somewhat of a failure. So I'm not sure they'll do it again. In the Gold Cup, there's kind of been this switching back and forth between USA and Mexico. So it's kind of USA's turn, you could say, or perhaps another team's turn.
I would actually say that if Canada and Panama kind of put their best foot forward here, and if Mexico and USA do send a B team, it could be a great opportunity for those countries to do well.
I don't think Mexico is at their strongest point, which means I think there is a team like a Panama, maybe a Jamaica, could be Canada that knocks them out, but they'll be strong favorites, perhaps the favorites to win the tournament.
Yeah, and their fans demand nothing less, as we said. Great. Okay, I think that brings us to the end, unless you have any closing comment.
I'll just say that for Costa Rica, their quarterfinal finish has become kind of their 2-year tradition, and probably where they're going to be again. But it would be good for a new crop of players to try and go one further.
Well, who knows? They can take us by surprise, as they did in the 2014 World Cup and in that tie against Brazil. So you never really know what to expect with Costa Rica. And who knows, Connor, we may end up being completely wrong and see Dominican Republic thrash everyone in the group.
Well, it would make for an exciting group, indeed.
Great. All right. Well, that brings us to the end of our look at Group A, and we will see you next time for Group B.
All right. See you then.
We would like to thank Future Bass for the wonderful music you hear in this podcast. The title is called Alone.